what is your health table? Your health table is something that you want to think about. I made a in the book. I made this comment. I created this comment that some men tend to play around so long in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and nearly 50s, and when it's time for them to settle down, now they need a nurse or a purse. And you'll see this also spread across social media that no one wants to become a hospice wife, no one wants to become a nurse for a man, no one wants to become his purse. And what that means is, or suggests, is that people wait too long to address health issues. And I mean it's very literally. And we all do this. I have a issue that I need to address that I have been putting off. And I'm not at the age where I can play around like that. And so now I'm going to have to make a decision to resolve that issue. It's not a major health issue, but it is a health issue. But what I find is that people wait too long to address health. One of the questions you got to ask your potential partner, because remember, you are preparing your table for engagement, is if that person is willing to, if that person is willing to take you on with your health issues. So, for instance, you could have a person who has struggled with cancer, or you can have a person who has struggled with diabetes, and as a result, they had to lose a limb, a leg or arm or something like that, right? You could have a person who is prone to have heart attacks. You can have a person who is prone to have mental health issues, right? I do discuss that as well. You can have a number of issues. When you have those issues, you are by default asking or expecting that person to take you on, because when you get married, you become responsible for each other. You don't necessarily become each other's parents, but you do become responsible for each other. There's no such thing as, okay, I'm not going to do that just because we're married. That it doesn't work that way. Once you decide to become married and become one, you are each other's person, point of contact, emergency call, representative, uh, anything that you could think of. And so it's not like you have one foot outside of the marriage and one foot in. Like you're doing a hokey pokey or something like that. When you're in, you're all the way in. And when you're thinking about this health table, your health table, you have to consider that the decisions that you're making now, whatever age you are at, the decisions that you're making now, someone will have to share in the burden of those decisions if you decide to get married or if you decide to live with a partner. I remember a situation with my stepfather and his wife, which I believe would become my stepmother, right? Um, um, they both started out at a job, at a certain job, and then somehow he got into trouble. He was just one of those types of people who wasn't going to stay on the job after a certain time, and he went on ahead and quit the job. So then the burden of the financial load was on her. He did get a disability check from a previous job that was sufficient to pay for his their living expenses, right? Their shelter costs. But he wanted her to stay on that job because it was full time, and then it could fund some of the hobbies that he was doing. Well, there was stress at the job. She was kind of running herself down, and then one night she woke up coughing real bad, went into a coma. Ended up finding out that she actually had diabetes. She was in that coma for, I don't know, a good month. And there was just a lot of health issues, and then she came out partially blind. And so what the reason why I tell that story is because when you get with a certain partner, what kind of partner are you marrying? He was perfectly willing to let her work full time and he stay at home, which contributed to her working too much at their ages. The type of job, it was too much on her, um, physically, and then she was expected to be a wife at the house, and all that that entails. And there was a lot of responsibility. There was a lot of some conflict. There was a lot going on within their dynamic. He couldn't work a job too long because of a previous disability, and he did do a little bit of a part-time job. But when you are thinking about the partner that you are going to marry, engage, and then marry, it is really important to understand how they think about the marriage, and who's going to work and who's not going to work, and how long we're going to work, and how much work is too much work, and what kind of funds do we have, can we take it easy. Many people are having to return to the workforce in their 60s, 70s, 80s because somehow they didn't plan in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so when you take on the task of working an 8-hour job and standing on your feet, that's going to affect your health, and it's going to exacerbate whatever type of situation you are already in health wise, based upon your age. So if you got it in your mind in your 20s that I'm going to do better to ensure that I make the kind of money so I don't have to return to work in my 70s and 80s, which would exacerbate a current health type situation, then if I can be sure that I do that, then I will fare better. And when I actually retire, I can actually be retired. Having the health conversation, having the health foresight now, and making sure that you can make the kind of money so that you won't have to take on a certain type of grueling task is important. And we don't think like that because we think while we are in our 20s we are invincible, we move around, um, it's not that big of a deal, so I'll be okay. But we begin to feel our mortality in our 40s. That's when we realize that we can actually die. However, even though we know that we can die, I like to look at it like this: the typical retirement age is 65. So if you look at yourself, if you examine yourself at 40 years old and you look ahead at 65, that means you have 25 more years to turn it around for yourself. That's how I look at it. So that means you need to check your health. You may need to change your eating habits. You may need to exercise. But your health could also be your financial health, and making sure that you're making the kind of money and that you don't wait too long. You have people who have been a waitress for so many years and they never went to school, they never advanced, they never moved beyond being a waitress. Nothing wrong with being a waitress, but now you're at a certain age and you can't make more than what you make as a waitress. And you don't have any education, you never got a certificate in something, you never did something beyond where you are. And so anything that you can do now in your 20s, 30s, and 40s will be helpful for you health wise in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, possibly 80s, 90s as well. So, what is your health table?